For question number one, where it says, I am a new nurse in a hospital who is preparing to assist in the operating room, and you observe the primary surgeon scrubbing for the surgery. And just before he enters the OR, he stops to sign some papers. How would I approach that surgeon? So I'm going to provide to you my response to that question. Excuse me, doctor. I just noticed that you had just finished scrubbing in for your surgery. And then I noticed that you had taken someone's pen and to sign some papers. I just wanted to remind you, in case you had forgotten, that you'd already scrubbed in, that you had, in fact, scrubbed in, and then you touched something that is not considered sterile before entering the OR. So I really was just serving as a reminder in case you forgot. I'm sorry, but I can't allow you to go into the OR under these circumstances. I know you're the doctor and I'm a new nurse here, and I don't necessarily want to start my relationship off with you or with the hospital in this fashion, but I have to put patient safety first. And that is what I'm going to do. So if you continue to proceed into the OR without scrubbing in again, I'm going to have to go straight to the administrator about the situation or head of surgery. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be that way, but that's the facts of the matter. This is patient safety we're talking about. Question number two. You work for a tyrant of a doctor who has fired several nurses in your department. You just saw him make an error that might endanger the patient, but you are afraid to speak up. You need the job. What would you do? I'm going to now record for you my answer to question number two. Question number three. You are a doctor in a reputable hospital and work with a physician who you regard as incompetent in many areas. Do you speak to the doctor directly or opt to speak to your boss? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each approach? So I'm going to record my first statement now. If I were to speak to the doctor directly, this is what I would say prior to going to the boss. Excuse me, Dr. Simmons. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your background in nephrology as well as in cardiac care. I realize that you are an endocrinologist and that with the study of the body, you learn many things about many different areas because you need to know those things. But I myself, as a cardiac doctor, would prefer that you not speak to my patients about cardiac care because you are an endocrinologist. If we're talking about specialties, I would like to, for you, when we're in regard to my patients, I would like for you to, stick to what you may know about your specialty and allow me to address the cardiac care. Yes, we work as a team, but that's why we have specialties, because we need to be able to speak to those specialties on our own. And then you and I confer, when we meet as a team. But I don't necessarily want you to speak to my patients like you are a cardiac doctor, because that's not where your competency lies. Yes, I realize that you take cardiac along with, your endocrinology when you become when you were studying in school and all of those things. But that's not your specialty now. You chose to become an endocrinologist, and that's lovely. I wouldn't speak to your patients about the endocrinology portion of their health care. So I'm asking you not to speak to my patients about their cardiac care. Because if you provide them the wrong information, something happens, that falls on me and on my cardiac care. That's my reputation. And I take my reputation very seriously. So please don't. Let's just continue to treat this patient as we are as a team. And you speak to your portion of it, and I will speak to mine. Okay? Thank you so much, Dr. Simmons. Now, to speak to the boss about Dr. Simmons and his incompetence in speaking to the patients. Excuse me, Mr. Warner. Do you have some time that we can talk for a moment? Great, great. Okay. So I won't take much of your time, but I wanted to speak with you about Dr. Simmons and the fact that he is showing some incompetence by speaking to patients about specialties he has no field. It's not in his field. So I was wondering if you could possibly speak with him about staying within his lane and speaking to only his specialty when we are working as a team and we're talking to patients. Recently, he, provided some information about cardiac care when I wasn't around that he, suggested that we treat this patient this way. And the patient, was taken aback by it because she wanted to know why I hadn't already told her that's what we were going to do, when that's not at all what my approach was going to be for her care. So if you can and wouldn't mind so much, I mean, because it does fall under your realm, and I'm, going to you because you are the boss. I would prefer if you can speak to him about that and clear the air so that he knows where his buck stops and mine starts. I don't want to be responsible for a doctor that makes a cardiac call and he's not a cardiac doctor and something happens to that patient. I take great pride in what I do for my patients. So I would like for you to speak to him if you wouldn't mind about the situation and see if we can resolve it that way. Because he's a great doctor in his field. I love working with him in that fashion. But, I just need him to understand that I treat the cardiac side of the patient. Okay, great. Okay. Well, if you need anything else from me, please let me know. Other than that, I will consider it, you know, discussed and taken care of since you're going to talk to him for me. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a great day. So, we're going to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of each of the approaches I just did. The approach where I directly asked the doctor about his speaking to my patients about cardiac care, advantages to that are that as colleagues, we can talk to each other, troubleshoot, you know, find out every aspect we need to know about the patient. If we work together well enough, he's got a good idea of how I might treat the patient, but there's got to be a level of trust there that I can trust he's going to stay in his lane and that he can know that I'm going to take care of my patient's cardiac care. So it's colleague to colleague. At that point, I would hope the respect would be there from Dr. Simmons, and that me as a doctor would approach it in a reputable, respectful way, so that was not to create conflict, but to ensure boundaries for both physicians. Disadvantages of me approaching him? Well, we all probably know that he could, flip out and, say that he doesn't want to be talked to that way, or he doesn't want to be addressed by another doctor about his way that he conducts his care. It could present for a bad relationship at a reputable hospital, and we work together as a team often, maybe, and that would destroy any future teamwork we might be able to have together. That might be the best teamwork we might have for the patient. So there's definitely some disadvantage to that. And he may not even take me seriously. He may not even care. He may be a doctor that's somewhat stuck on himself, or a snub, or whatever the case may be. And he might not take it well that I'm trying to tell him what to speak to. The advantages of going to the boss, I would think, are pretty much on the wall, written on the wall. Um, Utilizing the boss and his role. That is his role, to take care of things that are going on in the department, or between two physicians, um, and for him to figure out how to address it so that it doesn't necessarily destroy the relationship between the two physicians, but to kind of build it up as, something that could be made stronger with these subtle improvements of, is focusing more on his endocrinology versus trying to take in too much on the cardiac side. A disadvantage to going to the boss is your colleague can no longer, Dr. Simmons can no longer trust me as a colleague, possibly because I went to his boss to report something that I felt was incompetence, versus, he thought he was speaking to what he may know about what I would say. But it very much could destroy that teamwork and that environment of being able to work together. He he could be off the deep end, and he could, tell every doctor he knows that, I don't know what I'm doing, or that I made these mistakes or that mistakes. And so there's a number of ways to go here that are safety nets, and I think other ways to go that are not quite that. And I think in the world of being a manager or a boss, you have to opt for the subtle way first. And then if subtle way doesn't work, you have to dive in deeper and take it to another level. Whether it be take it to the boss because you've already spoken to them and there's been no change, or you take it to the boss because you don't think that the relationship is strong enough for him to take the feedback you're giving him. So that would be my answers to those questions.